The priest announces the start of the appraisal ceremony for the young nobles. Someone steps forward with steady, determined footsteps. He is MC and Jimmel Maddo, the twin sons of the Sword Saint family, make their entrance. The onlookers whisper and point as they recognize the prestigious siblings. The crowd discusses the Maddo family's legacy of inheriting the Sword Saint's skill for generations. Maddo, the eldest son, is introduced as the renowned heir. Observers question who the second figure standing next to is. The younger twin, Jimmel Maddo, is identified with a much darker reputation. People gossip that Jimmel is the antithesis of his brother, known more for his awful behavior than his skill. Jimmel overhears the whispers and angrily confronts the commoners gossiping about him. He boldly calls them out for slandering a noble right to his face. Jimmel draws his blade, threatening to make mincemeat of them while they beg for forgiveness. With a shout of "Die!" Jimmel swings his sword at the terrified civilians. Steps in at the last second, blocking his brother's strike with his own weapon. Commands Jimmel to stop his madness immediately. Lectures Jimmel, telling him that abusing their family's authority is a bad habit. Jimmel snaps back, telling not to act superior just because he was born a few moments earlier. Jimmel scoffs and sheathes his sword, rudely telling the commoners to get out of his way. The rescued civilians tearfully thank though he humbly brushes it off. Kneels to apologize for his younger brother's rudeness. Jimmel walks away, scolding that a noble should never bow so easily. Their father, Taz's Maddo, appears and calls out to his sons. He remarks on how time flies and notes that they have finally turned 15. He reminds them that he trained them hard for this day to receive their special job skills. The priest calls Maddo forward to determine the future of their house. Stands before the altar while the priest waits, and the crowd watches in anticipation. The onlookers are certain will inherit the Sword Saint skill since he is the eldest. Jimmel watches from the sidelines with a look of irritation and jealousy. Reflects on the duty passed down in the Maddo family to protect the people. He steels his determination, believing in noblesse oblige and the duty to protect the meek. A massive reaction of light erupts from the crystal, shocking the entire crowd. His father watches with glee, convinced the rainbow light signifies the Sword Saint's skill. Jimmel grits his teeth in frustration, cursing his brother's apparent success. Nothing says loving family like praying for your brother's downfall so you can be the favorite. The status plate reveals job is not Sword Saint, but Unlocker. The crowd is baffled, having never heard of such a job before. Jimmel bursts into laughter, realizing his brother received a completely useless skill. Jimmel mocks realizing his grand skill is just for opening doors. The mood shifts to pity and disgrace for the eldest son of the Sword Saint. Father trembles with rage, calling his son a bastard. Jimmel shoves past eager to take his turn and prove his worth. Jimmel places his hand on the appraisal crystal without hesitation. He pushes his brother aside, calling him a weakling as the results appear. The status plate reveals Jimmel's job is the Great Sword Saint. The crowd gasps, realizing he has received a superior version of the legendary skill. The father embraces Jimmel, praising him for saving the family's honor. He turns on screaming that he wasted the effort put into raising him. The father verbally disowns calling him trash and scum for betraying his expectations. Is violently thrown out of his home while the servants giggle and curse at him. He realizes that in this world, a person's worth is entirely determined by their job skill. His family tells him to get lost and commands him never to show his face again. Walks away alone, accepting the grim reality of his new life. He recalls the hateful words of his family calling him failure skill trash. He takes a step forward, leaving his noble life behind him. Even the maids who used to be kind now look at him with disgust and refuse him entry. The servants apologizes but coldly asks him not to speak to them anymore. Alone in the woods, draws his sword while remembering how everyone wished for him to die. He assumes a fighting stance, focusing on his sword like ending his life. He swings his blade through the air with a sharp slash. Hurak looks at his weapon with a serious, determined expression. He declares that he does not plan to die, no matter what others say. The angry faces of his father, brother, and servants flash in his mind, all wishing him dead. He sheathes his blade, acknowledging that his existence has been denied by everyone he knew. A close-up of his face shows sadness but also a quiet strength. He looks back at the capital, vowing to stick to his creed of noblesse oblige regardless of his status. He turns away and heads into the forest, deciding to travel to a nearby city. His eyes widen in surprise as he senses something nearby. A wolf-like monster lunges at him from the bushes. He prepares to fight, confident that his strict training is enough to handle a D-rank monster. The monster is defeated and dissolves, leaving items on the ground. Hurak examines the magic stone and greyhound pelt that dropped. He notes that determining item rank usually requires a special guild tool. He recalls the legend of a hero who possessed an appraisal skill that worked by sight alone. He dismisses the legend as a fairy tale, noting his own skill is nothing like that. Nothing screams main character event like stumbling upon a defenseless elf girl in the woods 5 minutes after leaving home. Suddenly he hears a scream and spots a girl in danger. He realizes the girl is surrounded by a whole pack of greyhounds. He shouts a warning and rushes in to save her from the attack. The elf girl cowers on the ground, terrified of the monsters. Hurak intercepts the wolves, standing firm between them and the girl. He slashes one of the wolves, taking it down instantly. He calculates that there are still 10 wolves left, and he must protect the girl while fighting. The elf girl shouts at Hurak to stop being stupid and run away while she holds them off. He refuses to leave her, stating that protecting the weak is the duty of those with power. 2 wolves circle around him, looking for a blind spot. He slashes at the wolves, keeping them at bay while guarding the girl. More wolves lunge at him from different directions. He strikes down another wolf with a powerful swing. A huge wolf lunges directly at him, snapping its jaws. The battle rages on, with the sounds of rattling armor and clashing strikes. Hurak barely dodges an attack, struggling to keep up with the ferocious speed of the monster. The giant greyhound lunges forward with overwhelming force. The beast bites deep into Hurak's arm, causing blood to spurt out as he grunts in pain. Hurak realizes his left arm is useless, and spots his sword lying too far away to retrieve, forcing him into a desperate gamble. With no other options, Hurak screams out to activate his unique skill, Unlocker. A digital status window appears, showing his critical health at 10-100 and a list of SSS rank skills like status manipulation. The screen glitches and clarifies, confirming his job as Unlocker and revealing powerful skills like Item Box and Ultimate Appraisal. Hurak stares at the floating blue screen in utter confusion, wondering what in the world he is looking at. He gasps as the wolf lunges at him again, interrupting his moment of confusion. Moving on instinct, Hurak unleashes a slash of magical energy. The air around him freezes instantly as his new magic takes shape. He casts Ultimate Ice Magic, firing a barrage of ice shards at the pack. The spell Freeze Lancer impales the monsters, instantly neutralizing the threat. Ah, the classic "I was useless 5 seconds ago, but now I have SSS rank God powers" twist. Never seen that one before. Hurak quickly finishes off the remaining immobilized wolves with precise stabs. He exhales deeply, relieved that the intense encounter is finally over. The elf girl stares in awe, telling Hurak she can't believe he wiped out the entire flock in an instant. Hurak ignores her to look at his status window again, asking the girl if she can see the transparent screen floating in front of him. The half-elf beauty realizes this must be related to the legend of the hero, who could tell ranks at a glance using appraisal. The elf concludes that the old legend about the hero's skill was actually incorrect. The skill the hero possessed wasn't just appraisal, but the unlocker skill that opens the status window. But no one knows this, of course, his kindest family who disowned Hurak too. Hurek realizes his power allows him to see everything about a person, unlocking the truth of the world. Yep, dude got the strongest cheating skill in the world. Hurek stares at a floating blue window, amazed that he possesses such power. A blonde elf girl kneels on the ground in front of him, clasping her hands and begging the hero to forgive her for her impudence. The elf looks up with wide, trembling eyes and asks if the floating object he is looking at is what is known as a status window. Hurek denies being a hero, telling the confused girl that she doesn't need to be so humble. The elf explains that the status window is something a hero summoned from another world once used, though she has never seen one herself. Hurek realizes this matches his unlocker skill perfectly as he stares at his own stats, which show only 8 health remaining. He explains to her that the window acts as a system that numerically represents a person's abilities and skills. The elf notes there are no official records of such a skill, prompting Hurek to ask if it is just an old legend. Hurek stammers and blushes as he realizes the girl before him is a half-elf. The elf reveals that her grandmother traveled with the hero and was personally told about the status window. Hurek accepts the story, noting that elves live a long time and considers the information valuable. He observes the shackles on her wrists, deducing she is a slave and recalling the discrimination half-elves face in this world. Hurek asks for her name, figuring she was attacked by the greyhounds while being transported. The elf smiles through tears and introduces herself as Muse, apologizing for not telling him sooner. Hurek cuts straight to business and introduces himself to Muse. He declares that as a noble who upholds noblesse oblige, he has a duty to protect her because she is too beautiful to travel alone, noblesse oblige. Buddy, you were fighting dogs in the dirt 5 minutes ago. Maybe calm down with the philosophical grandstanding before you pass out from blood loss. Noblesse oblige. Buddy, you were fighting dogs in the dirt 5 minutes ago. Maybe calm down with the philosophical grandstanding before you pass out from blood loss. Hurek begins aggressively complimenting her blonde hair and green eyes, asking if she was aware of how pretty she is. Muse blushes and asks him to stop, as he continues to rave about how half-elves exceed his imagination. Hurek abruptly shifts gears, noting the scent of blood will attract monsters and suggesting they get moving. As Muse tries to follow, she stumbles, and Hurek notices blood running down her leg. Hurek apologizes for being inconsiderate and offers to carry her, but she refuses, worried that his own wounds will reopen. Muse reveals she could use healing magic until just moments ago, but now she cannot. She looks down sadly, explaining that she suddenly lost the ability to use her magic and feels useless. Hurek thinks about status conditions that block magic as he looks at his system window, recalling reading about this in books. He realizes he has a skill called ultimate appraisal that might help understand her condition. Hurek asks Muse to hang on a minute as he navigates through his glitched skill list. Muse is shocked to realize Hurek possesses the appraisal skill, noting only a handful of people in the world have it. Hurek taps the air to activate the skill, while Muse stammers that there is no way he could have such a rare skill. A window pops up showing Muse's status as a sage with a slave contract, and curse seal locking her magic skills. Hurek reads the detailed list of her locked abilities, confirming she has high-rank wind and healing magic talents. Hurek confirms to himself that he can indeed see other people's statuses. He compares the detailed information to the simple tools used at ceremonies, realizing this gives much more data than what was available for Jimmel Matto. A notification appears asking if he would like to consume 10 SP to unlock Muse's curse seal. Hurek recalls that unlock is his job skill and decides to restore her magic immediately. He commands the system to activate the unlock. Hurek holds Muse and asks her to try using her healing magic right away. Muse tries to heal Hurek first, but he insists she heal her own leg before worrying about him. Muse is amazed to find that she can really use her magic again, noting that the appraisal worked as intended. She thanks Hurek profusely for saving her, stating that a mere slave like her has no value in this world. Muse swears she will never forget what he has done for her. Hurek tells her there is no need to thank him because a person's worth is not defined by their status. Hurak reflects that he is glad he could help someone after being banished from his home, then suggests they head to town. Hurak suddenly asks Muse to hold on for a minute because there is something he wants to check. He activates Appraisal and Status Open to inspect the skill he just used. He discovers Unlock SSS, a skill derived from status manipulation that allows him to alter the status of living beings by expending SP. Hurak realizes that with the ability to interfere with others' statuses, a wielder could build a whole nation on a whim. He questions if it is really alright for a human to use such a skill, fearing it treads into the territory of the divine. Muse notices his hesitation and asks what the matter is, while Hurak thinks about how lightly he used such a dangerous skill. Hurak apologizes to Muse for altering her status without consent and promises to discuss it with her first next time. Muse tells him not to apologize, touched that he would use his skill for a slave and still respect her will. She believes that God would only bestow such a skill on a person worthy of it. Muse declares she has complete faith in him and tells him to use the skill all he likes. Hurak is moved by her words, feeling that she is actually the one who saved him. Hurak decides he will use this skill to help people and asks Muse if he can alter her status a little more, though she worries he is too trusting. Hurak asks if he can unlock her locked skills, and Muse agrees immediately. Hurak focuses on Super Hearing S, deciding it will be useful for her self-defense and consumes 10 SP to unlock it. The system window updates Muse's status, showing Super Hearing S is no longer locked. Hurak asks Muse to try using her new Super Hearing skill. Muse touches her ear and activates the skill to test it out. She picks up distant conversations from the town, hearing someone haggling over prices. Muse confirms she can really use it and tells Hurak it is amazing. Her expression shifts to horror as she hears people being attacked by a wyvern 5 kilometers away. She screams that they won't make it in time and tells Hurak to hurry back to the carriage. A ferocious wyvern is shown roaring in the distance. Hurak considers firing Freeze Lancer from their current location but hesitates because the people are too close to the monster. He realizes the spell has a massive area of effect and would likely catch the civilians in the blast. Hurak reveals he only has 50 mana left, which is enough for only one more shot, and asks Muse if she knows what happens when MP reaches 0. Muse panics, begging him not to use it all up because she knows the consequences. She warns him that in the worst case, he might even die, but Hurak asks if the people are still alright. Muse clutches her head in distress as she listens to the chaos. Hurak clenches his teeth, wishing he had the ability to strike enemies accurately from far away. A system window appears stating that Hurak Mato has fulfilled the conditions. The skill Hawk SSS appears in his list, costing 20 SP and 25 mana to acquire. The menu confirms that he can now acquire Hawkeye SSS. The text explains that Hawkeye allows the user to lock onto any visible target for precise long-range attacks. Hurak covers his face with his hand as he prepares to activate the power. Hurak commands the system to acquire and use the skill. His eye snaps open, glowing with the activation of the new ability. The view zooms out across the mountains and forests toward the distant threat. A crosshair reticle locks onto the distant wyvern and the people below it. Hurak confirms he can clearly see the targets through his new skill, even from such a distance. Muse panics, screaming that they are behind 2 whole mountains, and it is impossible to do anything. Hurak checks his status and sees his mana has dropped from 50 to 25 after acquiring the Hawkeye skill. He realizes Freeze Lancer costs 50 mana, meaning he has nowhere near enough to cast it safely. Despite realizing his life could be in danger if his mana hits 0, Hurak decides it is no problem. He confidently declares he will snipe the target from right where he stands. Muse begs him to stop, warning him that he might die and that the shot is impossible over such a distance. Hurak tells her to step back because it is dangerous, reminding her of the oath he made when he saved her. He invokes Noblesse Oblige and fires the Freeze Lancer spell with everything he has. The magical backlash hits instantly, and Hurak collapses to the ground with heavy thuds. The scene lingers on the silence following his collapse as the screen fades. Hurak wakes up groggily, thinking he only managed to create a few spears before blacking out. He opens his eyes to find Muse crying over him, relieved that he has finally regained consciousness. Ignoring his own condition, Hurak immediately asks Muse to check if the people near the wyvern are safe. Muse listens with her super hearing and tearfully confirms that everyone is alive thanks to him. Hurak feels a strange sense of fulfillment, swearing to use his skill only for his noblesse oblige, not for recognition. A system notification appears, announcing that Hurak has fulfilled the conditions to acquire the skill Selfless Virtue. The scene sets in Port Town Waz, a bustling coastal settlement. A merchant bows deeply to Hurak and Muse, thanking them profusely for defeating the wyvern and saving the merchants. He exclaims that the two of them literally saved his life. The merchant admits that when he was about to be eaten, he truly thought it was the end for him. The Hurak tries to hand over a bag of money for the Riddy, but merchant frantically refuses, saying he can't accept payment from Savior. Merchant pushes the bag back, sweating nervously, insisting that the thought alone is enough. The merchant insists to at least pay for their food, and insisting they stay at the inn he owns in town. Later, outside a fancy building, Hurak wears new clothes and feels bad that they were given so much luxury. Muse remarks that knowing Hurak, he probably feels uncomfortable accepting these from someone so kind. Muse happily shows off her new dress, noting the merchant is wealthy and kind, while Hurak realizes this creates a debt of gratitude. Hurak thinks to himself that as a noble, it is unacceptable to receive so much without giving anything in return. Muse wonders if Hurak is thinking of a way to show gratitude other than money. Hurak suddenly asks Muse about wyvern drop items, noting that nothing dropped when they defeated it. Muse looks confused, admitting she isn't sure because she was too worked up during the fight. Hurak raises his hand and commands status open to investigate. He apologizes to Muse and asks if he can touch her face to share the window's visuals with her. Muse blushes furiously but agrees, saying she doesn't mind if it's Hurak. Hurak activates status manipulation SSS to share the interface with her. He gently touches her forehead to establish the connection. The system confirms that visual sharing with Muse and Nemisjiv is complete. Muse opens her eyes and is amazed to see the floating status window. The window displays a select a drop item menu, listing Wyvern Claw, Wing Membrane, and the S-Rank Wyvern Bone Marrow Fluid. Muse is stunned to learn that Hurak can choose which drop items to collect after the battle. Hurak realizes he can get the item if he wishes, just as the merchant enters the room with food. Hurak considers the Wyvern Bone Marrow Fluid S, while Muse explains it is an ultra-rare item that almost never drops even after hunting 1,000 wyverns. The merchant sees the item and immediately begs Hurak to sell it to him, offering all the money he wants. Hurak calmly tells the merchant he will give it to him for free because he doesn't need money. The merchant freezes, asking if Hurak didn't hear him correctly. Hurak says he knows it's rare, but the merchant asks if Hurak hadn't been searching for this specific item himself. The merchant tears up, saying he wanted to thank Hurak no matter what because he was kind to strangers. Hurak explains that he saw that merchant was a man not attached to money, refusing payment for the ride and rent. He reveals what truly matters is a human's life. He explains that wyvern bone marrow fluid is a medicine ingredient, and wyverns live in that specific restricted forest. Hurak deduces a loved one is ill, and the merchant confirms his daughter has an incurable disease. The merchant weeps, recalling how doctors gave up and said no amount of money could save her. Hurak smiles gently and tells the merchant that now his daughter can be saved. Hurak interacts with the menu and selects Wyvern Bone Marrow Fluid S. He grabs the materialized potion bottle and tosses it to the merchant, telling him to hurry to the hospital. A system message announces that Selfless Virtue UN has activated, granting 500 SP as the merchant thanks him, So he gets 500 SP just for being a decent human being. If I got experience points every time I held a door open, I'd be level 99 by now. Later, Hurak and Muse look at his status screen, puzzled by when he acquired this new skill. Hurak presses the text, revealing selfless virtue, increases SP when appreciated by people, which shocks Muse. Muse explains that a unique skill, UN, is an exclusive power possessed by only a single person in all of history. Muse explains that unique skills are super rare abilities that, according to her grandmother's wisdom, are usually only bestowed upon great heroes. Hurak notes that using his admin skills like status manipulation depletes his SP, so this new passive SP boost is actually very useful. Hurak confirms with Muse that the merchant was pleased, realizing that selfless virtue generates SP specifically when he makes people happy. Hurak looks down, having a moment of deep self-reflection regarding his own nature. He admits that because he spent his entire life immersed in books and sword training, he has always been bad at understanding other people's subtle emotions. Hurak decides to use selfless virtue to help others. Happy that he can stick to his noblesse oblige while refilling the SP he needs to survive. He said this to Muse, and Muse stated that is excellent idea. The scene shifts to the Maddo household. A cup of liquid is violently thrown against the wall of a large estate, splashing everywhere. Jimmel Maddo kicks a servant, screaming that he refuses to drink such cheap booze and demands something better immediately. Jimmel sighs, complaining that these people never learn, while the terrified servant apologizes and leaves. Jimmel shouts to the empty room that he is the next head of the Maddo family and demands to be treated with respect. A voice calls out his name, asking if he really ousted Hurak as footsteps approach. Wilhelmina de Marjukas, the Flash Princess of the Empire, stands in the doorway looking displeased. Jimmel's father is on his knees begging for forgiveness for his son's rudeness, but Wilhelmina silences him. She asks them if they really don't understand the situation. Wilhelmina announces that the Marjukas Empire is officially cutting all ties with the Maddo family. The family members are horrified, asking why she would do such a thing. Wilhelmina reveals the reason is simple. She is Hurak's fiancé, and without him there is nothing to discuss. Jimmel argues that he is a great sword saint and far superior to a fool with a trash skill like Hurak. Wilhelmina glares at him, stating clearly that Hurak doesn't need the great sword saint skill. She declares that Hurak will surpass all of them and become someone far greater. Jimmel and his father are left speechless by her intensity. Wilhelmina tells them that everyone who drove Hurak out will eventually understand their mistake. Her eyes narrow as she promises they are definitely going to regret it. The scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild, where Hurak and Muse arrive at the impressive building. Muse giggles, telling Hurak he looks like a noble now, while Hurak admits he hasn't been out much. Hurak reminds Muse that her slave contract is lifted and she is free, asking if she really wants to be an adventurer. Muse ignores the question and suddenly shoves a bag of herbs into Hurak's face. She frantically tells him to eat the magic recovery herbs immediately, because his mana is currently at 0. They enter the guild hall and a receptionist welcomes them. Hurak approaches the counter, munching on leaves, and asks to register 2 people. Other adventurers whisper and laugh, pointing out that the kid is literally eating grass. One adventurer notes that eating that many herbs at once is meaningless for recovery. They judge him for carrying a sword instead of a staff, noting he doesn't look like a mage. One observer realizes with shock that Hurak might actually be successfully replenishing his mana. The receptionist asks Hurak to place his hand on a book-like artifact called the Eye of Truth. Hurak steps up first and places his hand on the device. The machine processes the data, and the receptionist hands him his new guild card. The receptionist stares at the card, which reads Hurak Maddo and job, Unlocker. She is bewildered, admitting she has never seen a job like this recorded in official records. She excitedly asks if he would share details about the skill for research purposes. Hurak declines, lying that he cannot share confidential information because status isn't a concept in this world. Bro is like, sorry. I can't explain my skill due to an NDA I signed with the authors of this manga. Hurak walks away, thinking it is best to keep his skills hidden when he hears laughter. The adventurers burst into loud laughter at his expense. They mock the unlocker job, calling it a trash skill they have never heard of. Muse furiously turns on them, screaming, "How dare you!" She demands they apologize to Hurak, who shouldn't have to put up with their nonsense. Hurak stops her, saying he doesn't care what anyone says as long as she understands him. Hurak apologizes to the guild for the outburst and tells Muse it is her turn to register. Muse huffs but walks toward the counter as the adventurers continue to sneer. The adventurers call Hurak a weakling and predict he will die in no time. Muse places her hand on the device and the room goes silent as her job is revealed. Sage. The receptionist is stunned to see Muse's job is Sage, noting that it is one of the highest-ranking skills among magic users. Muse panics internally because Hurak is reacting so normally, making it impossible for her to pretend she already knew about her power. The receptionist hands back the card, wishing them fortune, and confirms the registration is complete. A group of adventurers approaches Muse, ignoring Hurak, and asks her to join their party instead. Muse declines immediately, stating she works for Hurak, but the men mock her for being a half-elf. They tell her that being with someone who has a garbage skill is a waste of potential and threaten to take her by force. Hurak steps in, telling them to take the fight outside so they don't bother the guild members. One thug swings a massive axe at Hurak, mocking him for using a long weapon he is not used to handling. The axe comes crashing down with heavy force. Hurak intercepts the attack, but the thug strikes the side of his blade. The thug grins, claiming he wins because striking a sword from the side weakens the blade significantly. Hurak stares back with zero fear, completely unfazed by the attack. The thug's expression shifts from confidence to confusion as he realizes something is wrong. Hurak activates ultimate ice magic. The sound of ice cracking and forming fills the air. Hurak reveals a massive greatsword made entirely of ice, shocking the thug. The onlookers stare in disbelief, wondering who this kid actually is. They shout in confusion, realizing he created a sword with magic and speculate he is a magic swordsman. A bystander notes that such a skill is advanced magic, usually reserved for archmages from the capital. Hurak swings the massive ice blade, clashing directly with the thug's axe. The ice sword slices through the axe handle effortlessly, shattering the weapon and terrifying the adventurers. A system notification appears stating that Hurak has acquired Ultimate Swordsmanship, SSS. Hurak dismisses the notification and asks Muse if she is okay, noting it was just a scratch. Hurak reviews his updated status, confirming the new SSS rank swordsmanship skill. Muse stares at him with wide, trembling eyes, completely overwhelmed by what she just witnessed. Hurak explains he was originally an heir to a sword saint lineage, but his twin brother was the one born with the great sword saint skill. He admits he felt pathetic for being weak and unable to inherit even a basic skill, leading to his banishment. The crowd whispers in awe, realizing how powerful is Hurak. An older man with a beard calls out to them, "It is the guild master." He holds up a quest paper for a Fenrier, offering a massive reward. Hurak questions why they would hunt a Fenrier, as it is considered a divine beast in myths. The guild master reveals that the beast has wiped out 50 S-rank teams, and the cause of its aggression is unknown. Hurak looks at the guild master with a serious expression, accepting the gravity of the situation. The narration introduces Fenrier, a legendary divine beast from the Age of Myths, shaped like a massive wolf and capable of controlling fire. Muse worries, noting they accepted the request to subjugate Fenrier, but wonders how they will find it or how many days it will take. Hurak assures her that finding it won't be a problem because he has a plan. He holds up a bunch of plants, and Muse confirms that they appear to be just common medicinal herbs. Hurak begins to explain his plan step by step. He activates Ultimate Appraisal, revealing the item is medicinal herbs E with a common grade state. Muse admits it is scary how quickly she has gotten used to his convenient ultra-rare skill. Hurek mentions he actually tried out a few things the previous night in preparation for the battle. He states he will use his unlock skill on the herbs and asks her to watch. Muse is confused, repeating the word unlock in question. She recalls that unlock is the same skill he used to rewrite her status and restore her magic. Hurek smiles, confirming her memory is correct and that it saves him time explaining. He asks her to watch as he demonstrates, and Muse watches with respect. Hurek extends his hand toward the herbs and casts unlock. A menu appears offering upgrade options: Intermediate 5 SB, Advanced 10 SB, or Ultimate 20 SB. Hurek selects Ultimate Grade Medicinal Herbs A for 20 SB, while Muse looks on in shock. The herbs glow, and Hurek presents the newly created Ultimate Grade Medicinal Herbs A. Muse is stunned, realizing he can use status manipulation and unlock on non-human objects as well. She realizes that with enough SP, he can upgrade anything into a rarer version. Hurek confirms she is right while casually eating the herbs, apologizing for talking with his mouth full. He tells Muse to eat half of them too since her mana dropped, asking why she is so shocked. Muse exclaims that his unlock is a cheat skill that far exceeds their imagination. Muse politely accepts the herbs and eats them, thanking him. Muse brings the conversation back to their strategy. Hurek apologizes for the delay and begins to explain the actual strategy to defeat Fenrier. He activates his skill again, stating he will use ultimate appraisal on the field itself. The scene opens on a vast, rocky wasteland surrounded by distant mountains. A close-up shows Hurek's eyes narrowing as he scans the environment with intense focus. Dozens of system windows flood the air, listing every entity in the field: cockatrice, high goblin, greyhound, and even items like pebbles. Hurek and Muse stand back to back, completely engulfed by the floating holographic data screens. A close-up shows Muse sweating and wide-eyed, terrified by the sheer volume of information Hurek can access. Hurek spots his target and declares, "Found it." A specific window appears for Monster Fenrier, offering two options: Fenrier's location 5 SB and Fenrier's state 5 SB. Hurek reaches out and selects the option to learn Fenrier's location for 5 SB. He informs Muse that the target is 3 kilometers southwest, while Muse thinks to herself that she needs to rethink everything she knows. Muse reflects that common sense simply does not apply to the unlocker job skill. She realizes why this skill was granted only to heroes in history, and understands why Hurek was so shaken when they first met. Muse concludes that since Hurek can manipulate anything, living or non-living, he is essentially the strongest being in the world. Hurek asks Muse to confirm with her exceptional hearing skill. She salutes and shouts, "I got this." Muse cups her ear and activates her skill, sound waves visualizing around her as she listens. She suddenly stops, looking puzzled, prompting Hurek to ask, "What's the matter?" Hurek asks if her skill is malfunctioning, but Muse explains she can hear everything else perfectly. She just can't locate Fenrier. Hurek decides to investigate further by spending another 5 SB to reveal Fenrier's state. The system window updates, revealing the state as moribund, leaving Hurek confused. Hurek is confused that the status lists Fenrier as moribund, while Muse reports she cannot hear its heartbeat or breathing at all. Hurek decides they must take the shortest route southwest immediately to find out what is happening. Hurek hypothesizes that Fenrier might be under attack and asks Muse to scan for human voices nearby instead of the monster. He asks Muse to use her exceptional hearing one more time to test his theory. Muse activates her skill and immediately picks up shouts from adventurers yelling that the beast has gotten weak. She hears specific combat orders instructing the fighters to aim for Fenrir's head. Muse confirms to Hurek that he was right. Fenrier is currently fighting humans. Hurek declares they will help them immediately, while Muse warns that even a weakened Fenrier is still dangerous. As they rush toward the scene, Hurak wonders why Muse's hearing couldn't detect the beast itself despite the status window proving its existence. The massive, terrifying wolf stands amidst a pile of defeated adventurers, pierced by arrows but still standing. A surviving adventurer curses the monster, revealing it wiped out 20 of their best fighters in an instant. The survivors argue, with some refusing to back down while others scream that they need to run away immediately. Fenrier unleashes a blue breath attack, causing the adventurers to scream for everyone to take cover. An adventurer flinches, realizing he cannot escape the blast and believing this is the end. Hurak steps in just in time, extending his hand to cast Ice Wall. The blue breath slams into the massive wall of ice, creating a deafening explosion and clouds of smoke. A system window shows Hurak's newly added skills, ultimate magic, ice wall, and rewarding kindness, confirming he prepared them on the way. As the ice wall shatters from the impact, Hurak remarks that it was a very close call, leaving the adventurers stunned. Hurak realizes why Muse couldn't hear a heartbeat, explaining to the survivor that they are within range and he is here to help. Hurak reveals that the Fenrier has become a living dead. Hurak commands Muse to immediately aid the injured survivors. Hurak ponders internally why the status showed moribund instead of living dead, if it is truly undead. Muse praises Hurak's accuracy, horrified that the divine beast has turned into a living dead. Hurak stares silently, focusing intently on the inconsistency. He decides to use ultimate appraisal directly on the Fenrier, suspecting the field status was incomplete. Hurak sees the appraisal result and is startled by a sudden development. Hurak screams at the adventurers to stop their attacks immediately, which confuses and angers them. He realizes they are about to cast a spell to finish it and panics, because there is no time to explain. An adventurer swings a massive axe to kill the beast, but Hurak reaches out to grab it. Hurak throws his body in between the adventurer and the wolf to intercept the attack. Bleeding from the intervention, Hurak glares at the adventurer and asks if he didn't hear the order to stop. Hurak takes the damage to protect the beast, blood splattering as he holds his ground. Muse screams Hurak's name in pure terror seeing him injured. Hurak drops the weapon and asks them to wait a moment, reassuring Muse that he is okay. Hurak kneels defenseless before the massive Fenrier as it steps closer, crunching the ground and terrifying everyone. Hurak declares he has no intention of harming them anymore, and the Fenrier seems to smile. Hurak looks confused as the Fenrier suddenly stops moving, its eyes widening. Hurak violently coughs up blood, the damage from the previous attack catching up to him. He falls to his knees wheezing while the massive wolf watches him silently. Muse and the others are flustered, unsure of what is happening between the boy and the monster. Muse is shocked to see the living dead creature showing genuine emotions. She notes that it is preposterous because living dead monsters are supposed to lose all ability to communicate. Hurak checks the Fenrir's status, discovering it is pregnant and possesses the skill Mother Fenrir's love. Hurak realizes that the moribund status he saw earlier referred to the pup, not the mother. Muse realizes maternal instincts kept the mother's emotions intact. Hurak explains that the youngling in the womb hasn't turned into a living dead yet and is still alive, which is why the mother fought to protect it. He explains that even though she kept it safe, turning into a living dead meant she could no longer give birth. Hurak deduces she has been wandering these fields for a long time, unable to do anything but suffer. The Fenrier gently licks Hurak's face, sensing his intentions. Hurak asks the Fenrier directly if she wants to save her baby. He tells her that with his skill, he might be able to safely deliver the pup. Hurak warns her that if he does this, she will likely die the moment the baby is born. The Fenrier looks at him with a calm, accepting expression. Hurak asks her what she will choose. The Fenrier lies down peacefully. Hurak nods, understanding her answer. Hurak opens his status menu and prepares to use Unlock on the creature's living dead curse. He plans to then use status manipulation to rewrite her physical state from is pregnant to has given birth. The system asks to confirm the 20 SB cost, Hurak agrees as the Fenrier begins to fade. The mother's body dissolves into light, leaving behind a healthy white pup. The system confirms the Fenrir's youngling S has been born. A notification appears stating Hurak received 1500 SP from Mother Fenrir through the rewarding kindness skill.